It was a blank slate when we first started. And that was both exciting and also really scary. And our investigations that began with ornithology over in the exhibits museums, anthropology, we went throughout all these museums and finally ended up at the very end of one day where we'd spent the entire day in collections in paleontology, and I never thought paleontology we'd find anything. I just thought, fossils, are we really going to do anything with them? But we were taken down into this subterranean space, which was just magnificent to my mind. When we first came down here, they had just a few molds. It was just like 5, and I thought, that's not going to work. And so then we went back in the back room and found a lot more, and so it's getting full, and there are even more back there. There's got to be at least 100. It's interesting because, Dan, it appeared much bigger in that smaller space, and when you get it outside in the real world, it feels much smaller.
The day of moving that whale, I thought it was magical. This whale being rolled across campus in the middle of the day, and that feeling also that something was brought out into the light.
And that is something that my work is also concerned about in terms of what I try to give light to something that's been hidden or secreted away, and that's what we were doing in a sense here.
Right.
But not presenting it as you would in, let's say, a natural history museum, but to present it in its artifice, in this case its armature, that was used to protect it. I felt like it was really important to reveal where it came from, what it came out of, and why it wasn't on display necessarily. And this is the way it looks when it's not on display. And I wanted to just reiterate that and hang it from the ceiling in its armature as it would be down there in that space.
Right.
Because if we took it out of its armature and hung it from the ceiling, just as it is, it would look like a display in a natural history museum. So it's not so much, I mean, the cast is important to me.
But it's the way that it's framed.
But it's the way that it's framed.
Displayed.
And framing and containers has always been a part of my work. And so this is just an iteration of that. Is this your Abbey Road moment? What were they doing? What were they thinking? How could they take this outside? It's like really delicate. And this doesn't even look like a whale. But I think that that's what's important. It's a teaching moment in this, that whales once walked on land and had appendages. So we'll have to do this with Basilosaurus when you get it put together. That'll be really impressive. Well, I think it's important to see that up and then get a sense of a relationship to the armature. So you think we could actually get, or take 4 people to walk it in?
Of course, we could always take these off then.
Okay. You gonna get by that ramp? Okay. Am I gonna get by this ramp? I decided that rather than take this out of its protective armature, I decided that I wanted to keep it in the armature and hang it as is, because that kind of indicates where it came from.
Yeah.
And I like that idea, rather than if we just hung it there, it would have been dramatic, but I think this way it comments on the idea of display within the museum context, just as we've done down here with the vitrines or over there, with objects that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see in a vitrine. All right, Mike, almost there. You want to do both sides at the same time? It's too much of this plane underneath. And now we got that same canting to the...
Each image and each idea acted almost like an echo.
Right.
Sort of reverberated something else that was happening in an image, or this idea of extinction was sort of echoed by some idea of preservation and replication and authenticity.
Right.
And I feel as if when you come in here, you really get that sense of a conversation happening.
The idea of this show is implied in the first 2 words in the title, Past Perfect. And Past Perfect, it means essentially that it's actually in the past of something else that happened in the past. So that goes back to this idea of this kind of a layering of history. And that's what past perfect translates to. And I really like that idea that it is not only one past, but it's two pasts. And then future tense implies that this will have a life, a proof, or be a proof, or have authenticity at some time in the future.